How is morale on the PGA Tour? Steve Sands joins us now on loan from Golf Channel. He's there in Toronto, the Canadian Open. How is morale?
Oh, it's been better, Dan. I think that the farther we get away, Dan, from Tuesday morning, the more of an understanding the guys on the PGA Tour have of exactly what took place. Perhaps the messaging wasn't exactly on point on Tuesday morning. And I think as the details start to come out privately with the guys and also publicly over the next couple of weeks and months, I think that perhaps the image or the framework of what we heard on Tuesday will be a slightly different than what we had an understanding of around 9:30 in the morning on Tuesday.
Okay, well, give me a sense of what is golf going to look like in a year from now?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think a year from now, Dan, I think it's a little different than, say, January of 25. I think we're so late into the year that the PGA Tour schedule and the designated tournaments and the major championships and the Ryder Cup coming up in September and the way the DP World Tour has conducted its business and some of the guys over on that side who went to LIV, who decided to, go away from the DP World Tour, and the same thing with the PGA Tour players. I think things will look relatively the same in 24, Dan, but I think in January of 25 and moving forward, I do not think that LIV will exist in its current form, and I think the PGA Tour will be strengthened by some of the other best players in the world coming back, paying a penalty, a fine, a suspension, however that works out.
Do you think Jay Monahan keeps his job over the next couple of years?
I think that it'll be a rocky road for Jay. I think once he fully explains exactly what happened, what took place with the guys, I think that he certainly has a seat at the table on the board. I think that the players certainly have a seat at the table on the board. And I think that with Jimmy Dunn, with Ed Hurley, with Jay's trust from the players previous to Tuesday, you build up a lot of equity, Dan. You know that. And I think Jay has a chance to survive for sure. But I do think it's going to be a rough ride for him.
Is Greg Norman going to be involved moving forward, in your thoughts?
I don't think there's any way that we see Greg Norman involved in this. I just cannot see any way that Jay Monahan, the PGA Tour, and all the things that have transpired over the years. We're going back 3 decades, Dan. You know this. With Greg Norman fighting with the PGA Tour, I cannot see how Greg Norman has any type of say in what takes place moving forward.
But he's largely responsible for golf being where it is today.
He and Phil Mickelson may come out smelling like roses in this. Now, we have to wait and see how it all plays out, Dan. But for sure, if this all comes together and if the LIV guys who took the money are able to come back, however they're able to come back, Dan, whether it's a big fine, whether it's a suspension, whether it's both, whether they even want to come back and play PGA Tour golf. If that does come to fruition and they can play in the major championships and the President's Cup and the Ryder Cup, for sure Greg Norman will somehow come out of this smelling like a rose, which is pretty remarkable.
Well, it feels like maybe as they move forward, if it's true that Greg Norman said we're not doing away with the LIV format, that maybe there's more events where there's teams that are playing in events, but it's still 54 holes. And I just don't know how that works moving forward if they want to just save face to say, oh, this is golf but louder, and, come on over and realize how much fun we're having here, and you need to have more fun on the PGA Tour.
Dan, I don't see any way that underneath the PGA Tour umbrella, I don't see any way 54 holes, shotgun start, music blaring, guys in shorts is going to take place. They certainly will not happen head-to-head against the PGA Tour events, which there are seemingly every week. And I'm talking beginning in 25. I think in 24, I think what Greg said yesterday or the day before about things going to be moving forward, no change here. I think in 24, I think that it's kind of late in the year for that to completely blow up. But I do think in 25, there's no way, Dan. I mean, you and I have known each other forever. And we also are massive sports fans, golf fans, and we understand the inner workings of how the PGA Tour works. It's a tradition-based sport. You're not moving the rim up to 11 feet just because these guys are coming into the NBA more athletic and bigger size. I mean, you're not going to do things in sports that are going to completely alter the tradition of the game. And to me, the PGA Tour, you have to have some of those traditions. And I just don't see how the LIV model will exist here moving forward in a couple of years.
Steve Sands, the play-by-play voice, NBC Sports Golf Channel, and he'll be on the call with the Canadian Open. If you could interview one person involved in this today, who would it be?
Oh, man. I would – can I give you a trifecta? Are we in Belmont season yet?
No.
By the way, Dan, does the Belmont even matter anymore? Anyway, so I would say I would be interested in interviewing Yasir more than I would be interested in interviewing Rory, Jimmy Dunn, Ed Early, or Jay Monahan. I would want to interview Yasir. If I was allowed to sit down for 15 minutes like you do all the time so brilliantly, and I would love to sit down for 15 minutes with Yasir and kind of get an understanding of what they're trying to do, Dan. What are they accomplishing? I'm not a huge fan. I watch your show all the time, and I talk to you in text, blah, blah, but I don't know where you sit on the phrase sports washing. I don't know where you sit on that, but I want to know what they're thinking. I want to know what their avenue is into this sport. They've done it with Formula One, Dan. They've done it with soccer. They want to make an Olympic push. They clearly are making a push into golf and now have. I'd like to know what the purpose of it all is, and I would love to interview Yasir. I find him to be a fascinating character in all of this.
Yeah, I'm curious what the end game is for them with their money, and I'm wondering if they wanted to get the LPGA Tour as well, and I think they want to get everything under their umbrella as much as they can.
But are they trying to get the umbrella, Dan, or are they trying to be an investor in the sport and all these other sports and all these other businesses? I mean, I heard yesterday that the fund, the PIF fund, is worth $600 billion. $100 billion of that is allocated somewhere, somehow in business in America. So it's not like they're the umbrella. It seems like they're not silent investors. That's not the right way to put it. My business acumen is not high enough to speak on this, but it doesn't seem like they want to take over the sport. It seems to me that they want to be involved in the sport. Say like Dubai 35 years ago, they built the golf courses, the tourism. Abu Dhabi was the money and the business of the UAE, and Dubai became the Vegas of the Middle East and the world outside of Las Vegas, of having so much fun and golf and all those kinds of things. It feels to me like Saudi Arabia, and then the PIF fund in particular, I can't speak for Saudi Arabia, but it speaks to PIF, that they invest in things to get involved in it, not necessarily to take over the sport. But I could be wrong on that.
The Bryson DeChambeau interview.
Oh, man.
You would think that they get talking points, right? They had somebody that they hired to give them talking points when they first went to LIV. And people are going to bring up 9/11. Jay Monahan brought up 9/11, the 9/11 families. You're playing a golf tournament in the backyard of 9/11, all of these things. And then Bryson DeChambeau, like, who do you think approved that and said, yeah, go out there and talk? At 20 years, that's enough to get past 9/11. Come on. People make mistakes. You can't. If you went to LIV for money, go. I don't care. Good for you. But don't tell me that all of a sudden, hey, they made a couple of mistakes and you had 13 people involved with 9/11 from the Saudis, and let's move past that, That was cringeworthy.
Yeah, it was a tough one. I mean, you and I have been doing this so long, Dan. You would like to think that before you step into the fray there on CNN with Caitlin Collins, who's an incredibly accomplished journalist who deals in things that are way more important than sports. She wasn't trying to corner him. She didn't ambush him. She asked him fair questions, and he did not handle them very well. You'd like to think that, A, talking points, Dan, that's the first thing. But B, more importantly, Dan, I'm not picking on Bryson per se. This is anybody. Stay in your own lane. I know you are an incredible golfer and you're a great player, but to try to articulate the thoughts of what families from 9/11 who have suffered so greatly over the course of the last 22 years since 9/11 happened, to try to articulate that is just a mistake on my part. Like I said, Dan, stay in your own lane, man. What do you? Don't go that path. I just stick with, hey, I'm a golfer, and I can't even fathom what those people are thinking, and move along. Instead, he doubled down. He expounded on his thoughts, and oh man, that was a tough spot.
What does Rory McIlroy do next?
Well, I think Rory probably, you know how when your kids are little and they learn a valuable lesson, Dan, and you say, boy, they're awfully young to learn such a valuable lesson. I think Rory learned a valuable lesson as to whose side, who's on, who's transparent, who's not. Can you be transparent when you're making deals like this? Rory has a lot of faith and trust in Jay Monahan and Jimmy Dunn. They're good friends and they're partners of his. Rory's, as you know, Dan, he's a well thought out, a bright young man who's obviously a fabulous golfer. I think he would be best served, Dan, and I'm not his big brother, I'm not his father. I had a nice conversation with him the last couple of days here in Toronto. If I was giving him advice, I would say, take a step back and just play golf and be with your family. Be involved in tour issues if you choose to be, but don't do anything that you've been doing the last 12 to 18 months, Dan. Take a half step back and don't be the face and voice of things moving forward. You did what you thought was right at the time, and now here we are. And I think you ought to concentrate on just your golf and your life.
Have we heard from Tiger?
We haven't, interestingly, not publicly. I think Tiger's one of those guys like Rory, like a lot of bright people who are in the public eye. Not that there are a lot of them, but the bright people who are in the public eye, Dan, I think they take the measured approach. Let's get all the details, and then I'll have something to say. As opposed to, I'm not saying Bryson Dechambeau is not bright or Phil Mickelson or Greg Norman, but don't just spew on Twitter and go on shows that you shouldn't be going on and speaking about things you shouldn't be speaking about. I think Tiger is waiting to see what the details are. That's one of the things I found so interesting, Dan, about Tuesday morning, was that rarely do you see such a huge announcement like this and have the details only be half-baked. This isn't fully cooked yet. Nobody knows exactly what's going to take place. Yeah. I think Tiger's waiting to see what the details are before he then offers up his opinion.
Good to talk to you. Have fun up there. Behave.
All right, Dan. Good to talk to you. It's the first time I've ever been on your show. We haven't talked about the all-lobby bar. I'm happy we've moved past that.
You did a great job, though, in Sochi. You were an unbelievable lobby guy. Like you were a one seed at the bar. You were incredible.
Yeah, but I'm Purdue losing to Fairleigh Dickinson there. Listen, here's the deal, Dan. In order to be recognized as an all lobby bar participant, one would first have to be in the lobby to witness that. So I think it's a joint venture, to use the PGA Tour terms. It's a joint venture between me and you on the all lobby team in Sochi.
Wait, are we LIV and PGA Tour?
Me and you? No. We're always on the same side.
Okay. We're on PGA Tour side, or are we on LIV? LIV's got all the money.
Well, I'm on the PGA Tour side because I didn't take the money. You have the $125 million, not me.
I took the money.
You took the bag.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. Hey, good to talk to you again.
All right, Dan. Be good.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you as soon as you're down our way. We'll go out to dinner again.
Okay. That's Steve Sands at the Canadian Open.